recording of how to do the natural selection Fuzzies simulation activity. So you'd go to your class period, and it should be in the natural selection section of classwork. And then it's called what the name is on Google Classroom, or excuse me, on eSchool. All right, so I'm going to open up this worksheet, and it says go to the natural selection simulation. If you need one of these paper copies, just come and see me and I can give you a printed out version, because it will be easier, because you're going to use this website to answer questions, and it may be easier to answer these questions on paper. So just let me know. So I'm going to open up this little simulation. Okay. And I can see that there's 3 different environments here: grassland, mountain rock, and desert sand. So I'm just going to hit run simulation. It's going to run for a certain amount of time. So I can notice that my mouse is a little fox guy, I guess. And so what I can do is I can click on these. I call them fuzzies. I don't know what they are, little circular organisms, to try to, quote, eat them. All right, so after a little bit of time, you'll see that a certain percentage of the, quote, fuzzies pops up. So we started with 56% gray and 44% brown. So we started with more gray, but by the end, we had more brown. So according to natural selection, I want to think about why this happened. For this background, neither of the fuzzies really blend in super well, but I feel like the gray fuzzies I could see and click on a little bit easier than the brown ones. So I'm going to go back to my questions, and you can open this with Cami and just do it on the computer if you want to. But so for the grassland, which of the what hypothesis would I assume for each environment? So for the grassland, I feel like the brown fuzzies blended in a little bit better, and so the brown fuzzies survived better. So my hypothesis for the grassland would be the brown fuzzies would survive better because they blend in a little better. That's what I would write here. Now for the desert, sand, and mountain rock, I'm going to go back and do the same thing, and I'm just making a hypothesis for now. So I'm going to go to the mountain rock and run the simulation. All right, so this time I can see the brown fuzzies way easier. So they are kind of easier to, quote, eat or to prey on. And after a certain amount of time, this is going to stop. So I'm just going to let it run. I can eat a gray one, but all right. So I started with more gray and I ended with a lot more gray. So I'd go back to my hypothesis, and for the mountain rock, I would say the gray fuzzies are going to survive better because the gray fuzzies blend in. I would then go back to my simulation and do the same thing for the desert sand. So for the desert sand, now I see that the brown ones blend in really well. So my hypothesis would be that the brown fuzzies will survive better. And with your iPad, you kind of have to like double tap on them to eat them. And again, I can eat a brown one. They're just harder to see. But this still does work on your iPad. All right, so again, I noticed that I started with a little bit more brown ones, but I ended with a ton more brown ones because the brown blended in. So this is the gray starting percentage, the brown starting percentage. The gray ending percentage was very small. The brown ending percentage was very high. So I'm going to look at these numbers real fast. And so the next part, you're going to run the simulation 3 times for each environment and record your data. So we would record that down there. This is for the desert sand. So I started with 46 and 54, and I ended with 13 and 87. So what I would do would be for the starting gray, I would write 46. So I would write 46 right here. For starting brown, I would write 54% because this is my first trial. For ending gray, I would write 13% because that was what my data told me when I ran the simulation. And my ending brown would be 87% because that's what my data was here. So I'm just recording my data. So I would run the simulation 3 times with the desert sand, then I would calculate the average. So I'd add these all up and divide by 3. Add these all up and divide by 3. That would give you your average. I would then do the same thing, so run using the mountain rock, this one right here. I'd do this whole thing 3 times and record my data. And then I'd go to the grassland, run that 3 times and record my data. All right, and then you're just answering some questions. So make a graph as best you can. So what you should see is, oh, for the desert sand, we started with kind of even, but we ended with more brown. For the rock, we should see, oh, we started kind of even, but we ended with more gray. So however you want to portray that on a graph is fine. And then you're answering the analysis questions. Again, if you need any help, if you need a piece of paper, then just come onto my room and get one. I can give you a printout that'll make it a little easier to complete.